Welcome back to the 2 Months podcast presented by Manscaped. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall, and I got my co-host with me this evening. Finally, he is back. It's been a while. We have Clay Vanderham with us. Vandy, how's it going?
Vandy is dandy. It has been a while. You told me you were doing one tonight, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got time. And I was like, fuck, do I even remember how to do these anymore? But at the end of the day, it's just talking hockey. So, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Busy weekend with kids hockey. I've been busy for the last probably month or so, weekend wise and whatnot with hockey. We played a friend of the show, Brodziak's team
Oh,
tonight. They got the best of us. We were up 4-1 after first period, and then Lenny and his teammates decided to pick it up. They ended up beating us 5-4. So
nice. Did you talk to Kyle at all? Did you have
I
a
did. I'm not sure Kyle really recognized me. I mean,
yeah,
we only met the one time,
yeah,
so and I didn't. It was kind of you shake hands and but
yeah,
yeah, we spoke a little bit after. It got a little feisty in the game, so it was good. It was
yeah.
fun.
Nice, nice. Did you
And
mention
you, go ahead. What?
yeah, no, did you mention the pod with him at all?
No, I didn't.
No,
I
no.
didn't even. It was one of those games where we just blew a 3-goal lead. I was trying, or yeah, I know, I was trying to grasp what just happened.
Yeah,
And then I'm shaking hands, and we were talking about they got a good team. They're well coached, obviously.
yeah.
And then we were talking. It got rough at the end, and we were talking like boys being boys, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it was good.
Nothing wrong with that.
You, what's new with you?
Um, yeah, what is new? I guess for work wise, yeah, just back out here in Kitimat, British Columbia. So I was here for 2 years before and took about a year or so off. And yeah, no, I'm back here doing some great carpentry and scaffolding work. So that's obviously what I do for a living. But yeah, no, just kind of enjoying it. I might fly home tomorrow night and I'm home for a week. So we'll have a busy week with the pod. We got Brent Sutter coming on. We got Mike Fuda coming on. Obviously, tonight's guest is Bob Stauffer. And then, yeah, we got Craig Button. And yeah, it is going to be a busy, busy week. And I'll be in and out of hockey rinks and all that stuff. And yeah, so it'll be busy. And just getting some NHL videos sent out for Player of the Month. Cam Moon just sent out a video for Dustin Canal's team, and Matthew Benning, our buddy Matt Benning, is doing a video for Ilia's team, the Tracks U15 double A MLAC team there. So that'll be pretty cool. And yeah, just keeping busy, and I'll just be in rinks doing some scouting, just checking out some games and doing some podcasts. So yeah, you guys see us around, just come say hi, have a conversation if you want, I guess, right? So you're always in the
Yeah,
ring. So maybe I'll try to get out to some of your games too, Vandy. So
yeah.
yeah, be pretty cool. But yeah, that's about it. Just kind of keeping busy that way. Just doing some minor hockey stuff, and then yeah, just kind of keeping busy with the pod. And I think it's tough, Andy. Obviously this week will be a bit of a heavy week, and this kind of somewhat will be the theme of the podcast throughout the week. More or less in a way is because I think if I read the article that Sheldon Kennedy had with Pierre LeBrun out of the Athletic, with his respect group, and obviously as this episode will release on Monday, there will be a press conference from the London Police, and I think that's going to cover some of the hockey news in the world right now with went on with the 2018 Team Canada team. But and that's it's a heavy and it's a tough topic. Obviously, we saw at the NHL All-Star game this weekend that led all stories, and you had a lot of other things that were positive in it too, but that was that's obviously not a positive story that this is brought up, but it drove the conversation at the NHL awards. And the players are going back to the Olympics. There's a Four Nations Cup, so there's a lot going on in the NHL circuit. But with the press conference tomorrow with the London Police, that'll be a big topic. I don't know where you're at with this, Vandy, of how much you've been able to read or see or kind of get more information.
Yeah, I'm getting snippets of it. I mean, it is what it is. Obviously, what those five guys did was severe enough to where they're getting brought up on charges, and
Yeah,
that in itself should tell you how bad it was. And And then, going from that, I mean, everybody's got their opinion on it. But the fact that these guys, it goes to show you that, you know, as a kid, you're not invincible. To the fact, these guys all think, their shit don't stink, and nothing will happen to me, this, that, the other thing. Well, take a look at these five young men that basically, just we're talking, not only a career, but financially, uh they killed themselves by making stupid choices at a young age.
Yeah.
And if you can do anything, everything comes back to haunt you. Everybody's got skeletons, so called, in their closet and stuff, and
Hmm.
you gotta, you gotta watch what you do
Yeah.
when you're young, even at that age. And something as dumb as whatever it's
And it's
hard to.
allegedly, we'll see what happens in the
Yeah,
court
I mean,
system, right?
nobody
So,
knows
yeah.
nobody knows the true story except six people:
Yeah.
the young lady, and the five guys. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like I say, it was bad enough to where
Brought
they're
up for
pressing
charges.
charges 5 years later. So and these guys made a bad decision and a bad choice in life, and it's going to cost them.
Yeah.
It's costing them their careers.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? Think about it. Like these guys, a choice you made at 17, 18, and then you focus on your career for 5 years. Well, now what are you going to do when all the and take away the fact that some of these guys might go to jail.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's that bad. So it's like, come on, like figure it out, man. Like you fucked yourself by making a bad choice at a young age.
Yeah.
And look, we've all done it, and maybe not to the extent, but we've all made stupid choices in our life. And that's, I'm using this as a tool. I got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and telling them, look, don't think that you're invincible and you can hide behind your phones and all that other shit.
Yeah.
You know, there's consequences for your actions, and this is case in point. And nowadays, I mean, it's worse than when we were growing up. Nowadays, I mean, you legit can pay for your actions as a kid, where maybe in the past, unfortunately, it was probably swept under the rug and whatnot. But yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a bad situation all around.
Yeah, it is, and the mood was different around the All Star game this year because of that, and that's what Gary Bettman led with his press conference with Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner and the commissioner of the National Hockey League, and yeah, Gary said he'd be surprised if these players are playing in the NHL during this process, and all of them are RFAs, which will turn into unrestricted free agents, and that's pretty much what Gary said. They will
So
be.
they've all been cut from their teams, correct?
No, no. So they're getting paid until the end of the year on a leave. So they are getting the four are current NHL players. One is playing overseas. The four that are current NHL players will end up being paid through the rest of the season. And that's what Gary did say, that they'll be on leave pay, and then he said he would be shocked if they were in the NHL before the process. And the reason is because Rick Westhead from TSN, who has been all over this case from the start, did say in the Toronto, Ontario court systems, there's a backlog up to 2 years. So this, you won't see the end of this or the start of this probably until 2026 from the sound.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
we'll see what the London police say tomorrow, and that's when we'll have more information. And we don't know much of what they're going to come out and say. We obviously seen the reports that there has been charges of sexual assault. All individuals are saying they're pleading not guilty. So we have seen that through their lawyers. But we'll see what the London police say tomorrow, and then we'll know more what we can comment on, what we can't comment on, and we'll go from there. But and it's a tough transition in that, but it is a topic in the game, and there's a lot going on in hockey too. The Canucks just made a big trade. That was a bit shocking, or not shocking. Obviously, Jim Rutherford, the president of hockey operations for the Vancouver Canucks, was on TSN Overdrive on Wednesday of last week, hinted that he might be doing something before the end of the All-Star game, and boom, there you go. He makes a he makes a move the night of the All-Star game starting. And Elias,
He always does this.
he does. He's early.
He's the first one to crack the whip, man.
Yeah, he's made 5 or 6 trades this year. So he is not. He is obviously a quick. He's quick to what he's doing, and the Flames now put their eggs in the basket of let's do a rebuild here, let's do a retool, and trade off some of our UFAs, and so that'll be a big theme. And then where the Oilers trade targets are. The Oilers, big game on Tuesday night against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So that'll be big to see if they can tie the record from the Penguins for 17 wins in a row. The LA Kings have fired Todd McCullough as head coach. Jim Hiller will come in. Jim was assistant coach with the Toronto Maple Leafs, running their power play for a few years, and was obviously in Detroit too with Mike Babcock. So a lot going on in the NHL world, right now. And then what's happening in the CHL too, with the Alberta junior teams, leaving to go in the BCHL. So that's another topic too. And there's the minor hockey scene in Edmonton that's very big too. And and I know you probably saw the highlights and saw a lot of it. And Ozzie McIntyre just having a great tournament, a friend of the pod, and his father, and who is a co-host with us, Brody McIntyre, and Rupper's kid too, like at the John Reed. Like that was an unbelievable tournament by them to get bronze, and what they did was pretty cool too. I don't know how much you can comment on that before we jump to our interview with Bob Stauffer.
Well, yeah, I mean, Oz had a hell of a tournament, man.
Yeah.
And the best thing about it is, like, that team, I'm not close to that team. I've seen them practice once, seen them play once or twice this year, but you could just tell that they're genuinely happy for one another when they get individual success, and then obviously that leads into team success. But they got a good team, man. They're fun to watch. They got a little bit of everything on that team. So if you get a chance, go out and watch them.
Yep, for sure. Check them out. All right, let's get to our interview with Bob Stauffer from the Edmonton Oilers Radio Network. Let's fans, our next guest is the color commentator for the Edmonton Oilers, and you can also see him on Rogers Sportsnet on the regional side with Gene Principe and all the other great co-hosts that they have, or analysts that they have. And he is the host of Oilers Now from 5 to 7 on 630 CHED. We'd like to welcome back to the 2 Months podcast, Bob Stauffer. Stauf, how's it going?
Good, Josh. How are you and Clay doing?
I'm good, Clay.
We're good. Yeah.
Clay just played Kyle Broziak's team tonight, actually. So
yeah, my youngest played Kyle's kid. They got the better of us. We got a 4-1 lead in the first, and Lenny is Kyle's son. Him and his teammates came back and beat us 5-4. So
Clay, it's difficult for your kids to have to overcome your coaching.
I knew you were going to say that. And that's exactly what I said. When I knew I was going on the pod after, like, Bob's going to say something. I knew it.
Exactly.
There we go.
So what did you do up to the breaks on the break stuff? I know you did a hit with Jack and Tony, and you say the toy department of life there.
Well, I stayed in town, and as you know, I hosted Oilers Now every day.
Correct. Yes.
I would rather go watch the Alberta Golden Bears play UBC than go to the All-Star game. Hey, don't get me wrong. If we host it, hey, it's going to be fun. And I did watch a stripped-down version of the skills competition, and I'm not at all surprised that Connor did what he did. But I'm never going to apologize for caring about the Golden Bears program. I think that there's guys in that league that are completely overlooked. We sit there and we have all these different teams chasing NCAA college free agents, and everybody thinks, well, the guys in the youth sports, we've already seen those guys in junior, and we know they can't play, and then we sit there and I think if you take a look at the Oilers' track record, I think Edmonton would have a better success getting guys out of the West than guys out of the Boston area, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Rangers are going to get the best guys out of the East. And so, I went to watch Alberta and UBC. UBC's, how about this, you guys? I did the Bears for 13 years, 89 to 92, and 98 to 08. And in those 13 seasons, Alberta never lost a road game at UBC in Vancouver. Like, they played 2 games a year there. Wow. They never lost. I never called a loss. And that's because they weren't allowed to go to a bar after the Saturday night game on a weekend unless they swept them. So they always made sure they swept them. and whatever happened at the bar, I have no idea.
Stays at the bar, yeah.
Except I beat them into the bar. But no, a guy named Sven Butenschon, who you guys know, former NHLers coaching UBC. He's done a great job. They got a really experienced team. Alberta's young. Like UBC's 21-4-1 in their first 26 games this year. And they were two great games. The fans were jacked. The building was full both nights. You know, UBC's got 13 forwards out of major junior. They got a left shot defenseman by the name of Jake Lee, who's the best defenseman and certainly in the Canada West. I'd be stunned if somebody didn't sign him in the next couple of years here. 6'2". He was ran the power play his last year in major junior. They got Connor McDonald, who put up 50 points with the Oil Kings, running a power play on the back end. Josh Williams with the Oil Kings had an 82-point season, and he's not even in their top 6. And Alberta picked up just recently Connor McLennan, who had 45 goals and 90 points last year for Winnipeg Ice. And they got Aiden de la Gangordiere after Christmas as well. He had 65 points last year as a D-man out of Saskatoon. So these are two talented teams. The games were terrific. The pace was good. Both teams are well coached. And there wasn't just Brad Holland there. There were a couple other teams that had their pro scouts out there as well, because you're looking at, you're up to 32 NHL teams. You're looking to find players where you can.
Yep.
And there's some good 22 and 23-year-old players in those two teams.
That's good. No, it's good. I know you're very passionate about it, and it's good. It's kind of nice to bring that league to light and the players that play in that league to light, because there's a long list of them that are now paving their way to the National Hockey League, because the talent that's in that league, and also the talent that's in hockey right now. And with more teams means more players have an opportunity to play pro in the NHL and the AHL. Obviously, the AHL All-Star game is on tonight too. So a lot there to impact, but a busy week, a busy month here, a bit of a tougher schedule for the Oilers, but I don't know where you're at here, Bob, with this is pretty crazy. 16-game heater, everything's going good. Jack Campbell obviously played good in the minors the other night against the Texas Stars, so another great performance. He's stringing some more confidence in his way, but we'll see what happens going forward if that's the division, the call that the Oilers make to add more depth to the goaltending front. But a big game against Vegas Tuesday night, Super Bowl week. Everything going on there. How excited are you to get there, and how excited are you this week?
I'm stoked. What a time right now for the Oilers organization. I mean, the Oilers are on a 16-game winning streak with a chance to tie the NHL record Tuesday night in Vegas. And Bakersfield, as they go into the All-Star break, is 14-3-3 in the last 20. Now, the Oilers have spent money on Bakersfield. They got, they stepped up, and Peterson's on a one-way at $775, and Kajula's making $500K to play in the minors, and they still got Malone and McKaig there, and Griffith. They're all over $300,000. That's 5 veteran forwards. Ernie's down there right now. They went out and added Gleason in the offseason. Jack Campbell wasn't supposed to be there, but his last 7 starts, he's at a .935 save percentage. We're starting to see a little bit of traction with Borgo. Jaden Grube, who's out of the Red Deer Rebels, has probably been the best of their young forwards. He was a third round draft choice to the Rangers that the Oilers acquired via trade. So Bakersfield's, they're playing good. And for the Oilers, no one expects a 16-game winning streak. Josh and Clay, it's been a crazy year.
Yeah.
It has been wild.
To say the least, right?
You start the year 2-9-1, and not even a has-been, because a has-been infers at one time I was decent, but it never was. Hops on the ice in Seattle and joins 300 people out there with plastic skates, may I add. And since then, the Oilers are 27-6. I had absolutely nothing to do with it, but the boys need a little bit of comic relief. And Chris Knobloch's 26-6. Their defense over the last 16 games, they're giving up a goal and a half against per game. That's it. It's been atypical for Edmonton. And the fans deserve it, and it's fun to be along for the ride, let me tell you.
Yeah. Vandy, you got some there?
No, I was listening to Spit and Chicklets, and Whit read your text to him. And basically it was a breakdown of of your thoughts on why the seasons change, and that's, I mean, it was bang on. The guys are going to areas where they weren't going before, and with the Woodcroft hybrid zone defense versus man on man and all that stuff, and it's bang on. You're getting total buy-in. I mean, it helps when guys like Fogle and McLeod starting to find their stride. But no, I thought it was kind of neat to hear your
Well,
assessment via a context of your assessment. It was
well, first of all, it's flattering to have Ryan read that. Like, he'll text me out of the blue. He's tough to get a hold of to do a show, I can tell you that. But in fact, I've been on his show. He has not been on our show. They had me on a couple of years ago. Last year, before they before the playoffs started, Biz Nasty was talking about the Oilers' lack of depth, and I'm like, Edmonton's got 12 forwards that had 10 plus goals last year and led the NHL in goal scoring, And as it turned out, goal scoring wasn't what undermined them in their success against Vegas. They led in all 6 games of that series, and that was a bitter loss. I've been a proponent. I know we've spoken about this before. I like zone defense works in the NFL, like the Tampa 2 deep, right, that they used to run under John Gruden. And it certainly worked so well in basketball. They had to basically outlaw it and called it illegal defense. In hockey, there's always been a degree of that's not how we play the game. Like, there are teams that play successful man defense. Carolina plays a lot of man-on-man defense, and they're excellent defensively. They have really good defense. But one of the things that happens comes playoff time is, even though refs claim they don't put away the whistles, the refs at times put away the whistles. So if you're sitting there playing a low 3-on-3 hybrid like the Oilers and LA do, and Todd McLellan has for a number of years, you can get burned off of rubs and picks. And think about how Vegas tilted the ice in Game 5 and Game 6 last year, especially the game at Edmonton, because that was a 4-3 game in Vegas that turned on a BS call against Broberg, right? Like, they got a power play, and then Yamark got the stick up, and now it's a 5-on-3. Boom, boom, boom. They get 3 goals in like 3 minutes, and now they're up 4-2, and the Oilers get 1 goal on a 5-minute power play, but that's it, lose 4-3. It was Game 6 where they got victimized by long cycles in Edmonton zone because the Oilers were playing the hybrid, and it was specifically Nurse, CC, and Leon, who was not at 100%. And Leon was really upset after. And I taught the Mudslingers how to play zone defense in Division 6 in Alberta Men's. Like, that team was so bad in the early 2000s that I was their best player. That's a bad team, okay? But we went, and I said, you're playing in Clear Drake Arena. This is a crash court. Give me 5 minutes. So I want you guys to come to the rink. Instead of 20 minutes before a game, come 25, and I'll give you the most basic zone transition you'll ever need. And it's simple. If the puck's in the left corner, the left D goes there, and the support player generally is the center, and the right defenseman stays in front of the net. Okay? If it's in the right corner, it's the right defenseman that goes into the corner, and the center helps support. The left defenseman stays in front of the net. And think of the open look goals Vegas had in Game 6 because the Oilers were chasing around.
Picking moves, and they were,
Right? And so Knobloch credited Chris Knobloch, the Oilers head coach, when he took the job. Mark Spector asked him, and it wasn't on the Sunday, it was on the Monday, and Chris kind of got a little emotional. It was the day of the game against the Islanders, his first NHL head coaching. It was, who do you think of today when you got this job? And he said, my wife and Rob Dahm. And he was choked up.
Yeah.
And, Rob taught zone, and he would get criticized 20 years ago for running this system that supported the puck defensively better than any other system. It defied logic that you would get, oh, well, you can't play that at the pro level. You get picked apart. Well, no, he went and won 50 games with Todd McLellan's team in Houston the first year he went there in the AHL. So I do think having that defense combined with using the middle of the ice in transition, your center's got to be able to skate. Well, what do the Oilers have? They got centers that can skate. Like, when they're rolling McDavid, Draisaitl, and McLeod at center. And Evander Kane was ill today, so he wasn't at practice. So they had Kane on the wing, McLeod on the wing. But when they got those three guys down the middle, they can, and everybody, the other thing is when you're playing zone, everybody knows where they're supposed to be when you get, right? So you can
That's exactly it.
Like, so I don't mean to be super technical. I've spent literally hundreds of hours having this discussion with coaches over the years. And Jay went to the school of Boston zone defense in the offseason. But Dave Manson didn't want the D unless, he didn't want the D breaking the puck up the middle of the ice. And Paul Coffey has empowered his D to come up with the middle of the ice. And the end result is Vincent Desharnais, who was in over his head last year in the playoffs because of his puck skills. His puck skills have dramatically improved under Paul. So fans should be excited because the Oilers have taken a step. But as we discussed the last time I was on with you, they also had a really easy schedule coming. And they made the most of that schedule. Like, they had a light schedule for a while here, and now it gets tougher.
How do you think they're going to do in this month here, Staff? Where are you at? I know it's kind of been a topic on your show. I know Elliot kind of put it up in his hit with you, but where are you at with this tough schedule coming up here?
Well, they're basically on a 7-game road trip. Right there.
Yeah.
Because we practice and fly to Vegas tomorrow. Vegas on Tuesday. And then Friday in Anaheim, Saturday in LA, fly home Sunday. Okay. And then Tuesday they get Detroit. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. I haven't even looked to see where we start the next 3-game road trip. I know it concludes in Arizona. I think we go Dallas and St. Louis.
Yeah.
I would say if the Oilers go 4-3 in those 7 games, that would be good.
Yeah. Obviously, Philip Forsberg got the All-Star game here. He, he got asked about what the Canucks have done and Lindholm going to Vancouver, and he goes, "They're all in. Jim Rutherford throws the chips in again." And I believe I was listening to Elliot and Jeff on his podcast and saying you can only do that so much. And Boston went all in last year. Who knows if they can do it again this year? The Oilers have gone on all in recently, more or less last year. They've done a good job of drafting and using that first round pick, but last year they did trade, and they obviously traded the pick that they had before in Reed Schaefer. Where are you at with Oilers needs now? I know you were talking about Lindholm, but a lot of fans tried to tie that maybe you thought that Lindholm was coming to Edmonton. Who knows? Obviously, he goes.
At no point did I ever say that.
No, you didn't say it, but you wanted him to.
I said I thought he would be the best suited. I thought Edmonton could use a right shot center.
Yeah,
is what I said.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm at. I think they got to get a top 6 right shot. Okay.
Yeah.
Short of either a second line right wing or a third line right shot center. One of those. I think they need that more than the defense. And I think they need that more than a backup goalie. So I think they need one more. And I'll give Vancouver credit. I don't like to trade for Calgary. Just, I'm not cheering against Calgary. I'm not this. I'm not a Calgary sucks guy.
No, I know that.
I think Lindholm's a hell of a player. And I think full marks to Vancouver's management team. That's 6 trades they've made this season. That team had a small defense with soft bottom 6 forwards that did not have delineated roles roughly a year ago at this time. Now they got a big defense. They get rid of Pearson, who I don't think was super happy there. They get back a backup goalie into Smith, who the management knows because the guy was in Pittsburgh before, and that's where Rutherford and Alvin were from.
Yep.
And then they go and with the cap difference, they go and get Lafferty, who, he played in Pittsburgh too. So they know him. Lafferty's been so good. They played him. He's not been in the bottom 6. They've been playing him as a middle 6 forward all season. That's how good he is.
And Jim drafted Lindholm in Carolina.
So they've done a good job. They got a really good team, Vancouver.
Okay, what about the Flames trade you don't like? What they got back? Is it just the return? Like you don't like?
I'm not okay. They didn't get either of the 2 Swedish number 1s back.
Yeah.
Okay, that they've made Willander and is it Leckermacki?
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't get either of those guys back. They did get a number one back. B grade defense prospect back. We'll see on Kuzmenko. I mean, he did have 39 goals and 74 points last year, but he was also a healthy scratch this year. Is he somewhere in between that? I mean, maybe he comes in and kills it in Vancouver or in Calgary, which is the antithesis of what's happened with Huberdeau. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I wondered, where you mentioned Boston, like you could make an argument Lindholm would have been a luxury for Edmonton, given that they could go McDavid, Draisaitl, or Nugent Hopkins or McLeod down the middle.
Yeah.
Now, the Oilers are pretty good at center. I'm looking at Boston, and I'm wondering why they weren't in on Lindholm. And I wonder if that's and for everybody that doesn't think Vancouver, well, they won't be able to sign Lindholm, not so fast. They might move Besser in the offseason, and that'll because they got Myers expiring at $6 million. There's a chance they're going to have a heavy Swedish influence there. There's a distinct possibility they get Lindholm done.
I think Boston, the reason why they didn't get him is from the sounds of it, and this is obviously from Friedman's podcast that dropped on Friday, is that they couldn't do the sign and trade. And obviously we know when they got Hampus Lindholm,
yeah,
that's what they did. They got the sign and trade. And it doesn't sound like Elias Lindholm wanted to do a sign and trade at this time.
I'm going to ask you two guys a question. So I'm going to start with Clay. Clay, last year at this time, I mean, I criticized Ken Holland. I'm like, hey, we got to get going here on the air. Like, now's the time. Did anybody get a more impactful player at the deadline than Matthias Ekholm? Did they?
No.
We were calling it on this podcast
shifted,
2 months before.
He changed, essentially changed our back end with him.
Yes.
And I think Ekholm was battling something at the beginning of the year, and that might play.
That did not help Jay Woodcroft's cause either.
Absolutely, it didn't. So, but I mean, nobody. Who the hell was I talking to? I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were discussing it at work, and nobody else made a deal like that where that significantly impacted their team. Like
Chychrun went to Ottawa, and the Oilers were criticized for not being in on Chychrun enough.
Yeah.
And they got Ekholm, and Edmonton is 47-16-2 with Ekholm in the lineup. And he is plus 44 as an Oiler in 65 games. It's hard to. So the one thing now it cost them 2 number ones, but they got them for 4 playoff runs. They have them for 4 playoff runs. And so, you know what? If Ken Holland waits until the final couple days, and the other thing is, by waiting, potentially you might get a couple more teams in. Like, I could have a dream scenario. Philadelphia calls up and says, "What will you give us 2 number ones for connecting?" Okay, and we'll eat half on connecting. And they'd have to take a Fogle or a Kulak back to make the money work, and then they'd have to eat half. Like, maybe that's not a conversation that's even in the realm of possibility on February the 4th. That on February 29th is a possibility.
That's going to be a big ad because I know Briere is very high on Konechny.
Well, he should be. He's their best player. Yeah. I'm just saying, you never I don't think people thought Ekholm was in play on February 1st last year, right? And he ended up in play and in the Oilers lineup against the Leafs in that first game.
Yeah.
And Edmonton showed some mettle in that game against Toronto. They were much better against the Leafs that night. Then the Leafs came back and walloped them in Toronto. But, logic dictates they can probably get an expiring contract. I don't think the Oilers want to move a number one for an expiring contract. So it might be a second and a prospect for an expiring contract where a team retains. But if somebody's got term left, and if you're looking for a right shot center, maybe a guy like Dowd in Washington, right? He's a bit like Goodrow.
Yeah.
Right. And take a look at what the acquisition price was for Goodrow for Tampa Bay. They gave up a number one, got like a 3rd or 4th back, and San Jose retained, and then Goodrow was a part of their team for a couple of years.
Yeah, you got
Maybe that's the type of feasible trade that makes some sort of feasible sense.
Yeah, it's not bad. And obviously, you put out the tweet about how great, Darnell Nurse's game is coming to around too. So I don't. You want to speak on that because
Well, I don't think I just don't think. I mean, you guys, you tell me, like Josh, you think Edmonton needs to? They've got Broberg percolating the minors as a number 7. Gleason can probably come up and play as an 8. I don't. Maybe they trade for another 7, like a number 7 defenseman.
See, I'd like to get Nick Seeler. Like that's where I would try to get Seeler, and I would try to get. I'm still on Nick Delorier too. I know we're just picking.
You want to have the toughest team in the league, or what?
I just think that's going to become out because Delorier plays in the penalty kill too. He's just not a tough guy. Like the guy plays on their penalty kill.
Yeah,
like,
1.75 million. Like Seeler all day. Like they're getting a second. They're 100% getting a second for Seeler.
Correct.
He's making the league minimum. He's actually on a 2-way.
They'll probably get a first for Sean Walker. So
yeah, and you know what, guys, and Oilers fans aren't gonna like this. I don't see Walker being demonstrably better than Cece. No. Sorry, I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I know he's had a good year, but Cece's been a plus player every year he's been here.
Yeah. And it's going to be great to see them up against the top teams here. You're right. At the end of the day, I always say it. It's the National Hockey League. They're pros for a reason. They're the best players for a reason. It doesn't matter who they play against. At the end of the day, there's professionals on the other side and there's pride on the other side. So whether they beat Columbus twice or beat San Jose twice, whatever, it is what it is. It's the best players in the world for a reason. So win's a win is a win in my eyes. And, I think this is going to be a great game. It's going to be shaping up. Maybe there's a bit of rust in the first 10 minutes and they'll get going. But, as Ekholm was huge for the Oilers, I think Jack Eichel was huge for the Vegas Golden Knights too. And it sounds like he'll only be out the rest of this month and hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. The West is shaping up good. The Winnipeg Jets get Sean Monahan. Money is money. A great player in my opinion, in Sean Monahan, and kind of, a guy that could be up for the Bill Masterson this year because what he's done and kind of coming back and finding a way to, stay healthy and be a more productive player. So, that'll be big. The Leafs beat them twice. So, I know the Jets haven't looked great in the last 5 games, but
they didn't have Scheifele either game. And the Leafs won one of the games, 1-0. Was it overtime? Yeah, overtime.
Yeah.
Like that's a big, I'll say this about the Jets. First of all, addition by subtraction. Mm-hmm. Wheeler was no longer happy there and they got rid of Dubois.
Yeah.
And a coach probably lost his job because Dubois has underperformed so badly in LA. Like it's pretty clear who Drew Doughty was talking about last week, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, I love Velarde. Josh, I've been talking about Velarde for years.
Yes.
And the Jets basically got a really good second liner, a really good third liner, and a legitimate fourth liner in one trade for a second liner. Like Dubois is a second line center if he's going. And Velarde is a second liner. He scored over 20 goals in this league. And then Iafallo works his nuts off. Like he can skate. Those guys were both kings. And then they got Kupari in the deal. Like I think Kevin Shoveldayoff crushed Rob Blake in that trade.
Big time.
And maybe it'll be the wake up now for Dubois. I know what they tried to do.
Yeah.
See, there you go, Clay. You're like everybody else in hockey. They're like
a leopard. I don't know about spots. Like, was he there when did Maurice get fired?
Well, Maurice quit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of walked away.
But no. I mean, they're. At what point do you stop giving this guy chances? And unfortunately, now Blake is stuck with him for however long. But
8 years at $8.5 million.
Yeah. How long do you think Todd's out of a job for, Stauf? Do you think he kind of takes a little bit of a longer break time around?
Well, he got an extra year at the start of the year.
Yeah.
So the Oilers, he got paid 4 full years by the Oilers, and he's going to get 6 years from the Kings. And he went from 3 to 5 when he went from Edmonton to LA. I don't know if he has to work again. I have not, I sent him a quick message yesterday.
I know you know him very well, so I know that.
He's a really good guy. I think that, what's interesting is they had no business taking Edmonton to 7 2 years ago. They didn't have Doughty. That was a big loss for them. They were down one of their forwards. I'm thinking it was Arvidsson. They didn't have him.
Yeah, they were down. He's coming back now too.
Right. But they didn't have him in the playoffs, but they didn't have Doughty. Like, Doughty's leading the league in time on ice this year. Yeah. They didn't have him in the playoffs, and they still extended Edmonton to 7 games. He did a great job in that series. Now, last year, when they're up 2-1 in the series with 2 overtime goals and 3-0 after 1 in game 4, like, I'm sitting there in Los Angeles thinking, oh, here the Oilers are just like you guys, just like against Calgary, second period of game 2 in Calgary when it was 3-1. After the Flames won game 1 9-6, and then game 2 and it's 3-1 Calgary, I was nervous for him. I'm like, I don't. And then the Oilers completely took it over, got to another level. They did the same thing against LA. They got to another level. So I know people criticize Todd's lack of playoff success. Maybe it should have done more with San Jose. The Oilers weren't as experienced as Anaheim, lost game 7.
But can you look at it this way? Is he gets so much out of his team to the regular season and getting there that at some point it does, everything catches up to you in the playoffs. So he does so well in the regular season and to get the most out of his team that at the end of the day, it's you can only do what you can with the personnel you got.
Clay, I got to tell you right now, you're a smart guy. I can't believe Kyle Brodziak outcoached you. I find that shocking. That's a great point by you.
It is, though, because that's kind of been somewhat of his. Maybe, I don't know if it's a knock or whatnot on Todd, but hell of a.
No, if anything,
he's a good
compliment.
Coach.
Anything, it's a compliment. He gets the most out of the personnel he has, and at the end of the day, you get the players you got get exploited in playoffs, and that's just the way the game is.
Yeah. Well, they traded 3 forwards away to get Dubois and had no money to sign him, so they got Talbot on the cheap. And we love Cam Talbot. Great guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was great. All-Star game, too.
It was, except he'd lost his last 10 starts as a starting goalie for the LA Kings.
Yeah, he had a great start. Yeah. And Big Save Dave is their new number 1 goaltender now, David Rittich.
It'll still be Talbot, you know that.
Yeah, I know. Let's finish up on this. Stauf, every year or every second year, I think you do the child advocacy golf tournament in Red Deer. Sheldon Kennedy is a big part of that. Terry Lowen, Mark Jones. Obviously, the Oilers just had a big 50-50 for the Child Advocacy Center. It's a program, and it's something that we love too. We do help out in donations as well on our podcast. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. But Sheldon Kennedy had a great article with Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic, and obviously Pierre's with TSN as well too. If anyone hasn't listened or watched that or read that article, please go check it out. It's really great. But can you talk about the respect group that Sheldon Kennedy now runs and the relationship?
I can certainly speak to Sheldon because we have him. So we go and we do that event and we do our show from there, and we have Sheldon on the air. And every time we interview him, I learn more. I know some guys that played with Sheldon in junior. Rob Dom's a really good friend of mine. He was an assistant coach with Graham James for 2 years. He had his son Evan and his twin daughters in those 2 years. He and his wife Carol, and Ian Herbers was on that team. I know we were not in the mid '80s attuned and alert as much to those sort of situations and lack of recognition. Through a second marriage, like Peter Kozowski played on those teams. He's a police officer in Edmonton. So I'm sort of related to him. He was a 100-point scorer for Swift Current. And so I know that talking to Ian over the years about, because he was on that bus in Swift, and just, the fact that there wasn't any mental health. I think we're just simply at a we need to be continuously open-minded to be willing to be educated on these sort of topics and issues. But I do think we're further along in recognizing that, right? Like, we don't make fun of guys that have mental health challenges. People used to do that 20 or 30 years ago. Now we try to help people that have challenges and go out of our way. And if you're one of the people watching this right now that 20 or 30 years ago was bending over backwards to try to help, good for you. But not everybody was like that. We're much more tolerant of people that have unique differences in their personalities, much more accepting of a lot of different things. We use different terminology, stuff that was completely acceptable to say to a guy on the other team 20, 25 years, you wouldn't dare say now. Yeah. Right? Like, we're headed to a better place, but we can never stop learning more. So I always find with Sheldon, like, I think, and I don't want to speak outright for him, but I sense there's been a form of catharsis through this all. And I just really, I really enjoy just having the chance to have these sort of discussions. What happened to him was reprehensible. And there's different challenges on a daily basis for lots of different people out there. And we just gotta try to, and you know what? That's one of the reasons why I'm not super judgy on young players. I know you both know that.
Yep.
I get a little protective, like, of younger defensemen, because I think it's a hard position to play, and it probably takes 250 to 300 games to play. And I think that some media at times develop comfort levels with veteran players, and but saying that, I think people have grown in that regard too. And so, I know I'm not perfect. I know sometimes maybe I wished I'd phrase something a little bit different. And I think that the older you get, the more you realize the less you know. And you just got to be decent to one another, or try to be decent to one another. So, and the other thing is, you never know what somebody else is going through. Ever. You think you might know, but you don't really know. Like, I can tell you, those guys in the Swift that were 18, 19 at that time, some of them didn't know what Sheldon was going through. And it bothers them to this day that they weren't there to protect him, right? Like, they were, part of their job was to protect him on the ice.
Right. Yeah.
And they did not know what was really happening. And we'd probably be sharper, more attuned with it today. So, I do think like Josh, I think we're headed to a better place. I think we're way more open and accepting of, more tolerant, which is not to say that you have to be completely to the left on every social issue. No. You're allowed to have opinions and voices that are slightly contrary in certain areas, but I just, and so Sheldon's done some great work. I think a lot of people have learned from it, and I'm one of the ones that has.
Very well said, Bob. I've listened to those interviews you had with him, and they're somewhat tough interviews to probably have, but they're important interviews to listen to and hear, because the healing, the helping, again, what his Respect Group does, for a lot of kids in CHL and other leagues, and he's helped with NHL teams too. And I think it's amazing what he's done. And
they're hard. I mean, I will say this: I don't find it difficult interviewing Sheldon. I find it educational. I have empathy for what he went through, but he's really at a good place when he's doing this stuff with us. The hardest thing that I've had to do is when we're at the Stollery. And basically, there's a term that gets used for the players. There's a day called the car wash day where they shoot all the stuff for in-house video and the stuff for Sportsnet, and they do their liners for the Oilers radio network. And what happens in the Stollery is they rotate the families through. And so you'll get a package, and you'll get a sheet of paper, and it's a paragraph. And like sometimes you're interviewing a mom who's lost a kid.
Yeah.
So I found those to be, like in
Oh.
Sheldon's case, yeah, it was brutal and we got to learn from it, but he's a pro and he's done this over and over, and he can literally carry the entire conversation himself. Whereas when I'm sitting there doing that, I need a stiff couple belts after those shows, like it, because it's you think, but for the grace of God, that you know what, and so it is kind of relative. Like, I mean, I look at Sheldon and I think it's awesome what he's done, but I love having him on, and those Stollery days are important. But when you're dug in on those shows, those can be those are the hardest. The sports stuff, even I've had two stretches with the Oilers in this. I'm in year 16, two stretches where Edmonton won once in 21 games. Okay. And so at times people felt compelled, a couple times when I was out with my family, where they're like criticizing the team in front of my kids when I'm having a dinner, right? I'm like, hey, I appreciate, thank you for.
Oh fuck! I don't know how you do it.
Right. And so, right, like, I'm just like, this might not be the time and place, but I really appreciate, but the other end of it, like, being in Claire, like to be in Claire Drake Arena with Chris Knobloch before Christmas in the 8-game winning streak, or to go in the last couple nights, the better the team is, the better the broadcaster is, right? Like, we're in a 16-game heater. I've had nothing to do with it. I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah.
So while I will tell you, on either end of that spectrum, that is nothing compared to dealing with real life issues, like being at a Stollery Children's Hospital and interviewing a parent who's lost their kid.
Right.
So, right. So it really is. And then in terms of Sheldon, he's so good at it that it's actually, it makes you think, but from a broadcaster's perspective and keeping your, wired on the air so you're not too emotional, it's really quite easy, because he's at a good place with it, and he's doing a great job communicating it, and somebody out there is getting something that they need from it. So it's super positive.
Yeah, it is definitely it definitely is. And I've listened to those Stollery radio shows with you, even to Jason Gregor, and driving in the vehicle, and I'm an emotional guy. Hearing I've known you.
Can I leave you with a funny story?
You sure can, Stauffer.
Okay, you need one. So we did one, and Ryan Smith made a donation on Gregor's show, and my buddy Doug Wade, known as Daily Doug, and I actually met him and he was the Mark Spector contrary, and then he showed up at Overtime Broiler and Tap Room, and then he started showing calling the show on a fairly regular basis.
Great
and
caller, by the way. Yeah,
he was a great caller, and he really knows sports.
Really,
okay,
yeah.
He really knows sports, and he's a smart guy, and he ran a business. And he heard the Ryan Smith interview, and everybody, hey, it's great that Ryan made a donation. And Doug's like, you know what? If you guys really want to get serious here, let's do this. He goes, I know a lot of the listeners don't like me. So if we can get X amount of donations in the next 24 hours, I'll ban myself for 6 months on your show, Staff. And they couldn't keep. They had all those people, the really important people behind the scenes that are taking calls, that are filling stuff out for the MasterCards and the Visas and stuff. They're like, who the hell is this Daily Doug guy? Like, we can't, like, they had calls for like the next, and then so Bryn ended up picking on it again the next morning. He wants Doug to call in. And so he basically helped raise like $65,000 in a span of 2 hours. It was one of the busiest things ever for 1260. And here's how small the world is. He goes and gets remarried, and his stepson is a kid named Keaton Verhoff, who was the fourth over.
Way.
That's his kid.
Yeah.
And so I introduced him to Jerry Johansson, who I know you met, Josh. And Jerry's like, that guy might be the smartest guy I've ever met. And there's a comical Stollery Children's Hospital conclusion story for you. Everybody hated Doug so much that they flooded the phone lines to get him off the phone line.
He's a beauty. Great story, Staff. Vandy, you have anything to add as we sign out here?
No, always a pleasure talking hockey.
Hey, if you guys are stuck and can't get somebody better, give me a call, okay?
We appreciate you, Stoff, so much. Again, you got us Brent Sutter this week too. So
I don't know if I did. I think that was more Cam. I don't know if Brent's that happy with me these days, but
no,
he's run a good business there for a long time.
Yeah,
the game has changed a bit. I can tell you right now, if I had grown up being a cousin of the Sutters, there would have been 6 Sutters and a Stauffer that would have made it to the National Hockey League.
There you go.
Because those guys, you gotta get them to tell a story about Brian Sutter and how Brian Sutter wasn't allowed to be cut when he was cut from Junior A by the Red Deer Rustlers. You got to get him to tell that story.
Okay. Well,
okay.
Okay.
Awesome stuff, guys.
Okay. Safe travels. Have a great week. Cheers.
See you, Josh. See you, Clay. Thanks a lot, fellas.